Yeah, I'll start now.
My little wonder, the world is a large place, but when your interest has been piqued and your imagination unleashed, I know it will become yours to explore. Your father is so impressed with the way you think and make connections to the world. Your ideas and reflections are kind and
Did I
respectful.
spell it correctly? Yeah, you did, Everett. Good job.
I have seen the excitement in your eyes when you tell me that you get to set up your own experiments, just like a real scientist. The stretch activities in maths class challenges you to beat your own achievements, making you the best version of yourself.
And two. Very nice.
I'm glad that your teachers nurture your skills and knowledge, encouraging you to learn at your own pace and bringing out the best in you. Regular feedback from your teachers helps me understand your progress in class and how I can support your learning at home.
Mama, can we come back again? Of course we can. We're coming next week, okay?
Learning is a lifelong journey. I'm happy that the Eton Academy nurtures your curiosity every step of the way.
Okay, good evening, parents. Thank you for joining us tonight. Okay, I'm Miss Wei Fen, your host for today's webinar. We are privileged to have two highly experienced math teachers from the Eton Academy with us. First, we have Miss Jacqueline, okay, our senior teaching and curriculum specialist, who brings a wealth of experience in teaching the subject. Joining her is Miss Stephanie, one of our teaching and curriculum specialists, who also has many years of experience teaching mathematics. Okay, with their combined expertise, we look forward to an engaging and insightful discussion today. Parents, at any point during the webinar, if you have any question, feel free to type them in the chat. Okay, do also stay with us until the end of the webinar, as Miss Jacqueline and Miss Stephanie have prepared some free math resources for you to download. Okay, before we start the webinar topic, we would love to find out more about your child, which level they are in, and how they did in their most recent assessment. This will help us better understand their needs. We'll be launching a poll shortly for you to share this information with us. Can you see the poll now? Okay, which level is your child in? Is your child in P3, P4, P5, or P6? Okay, there are two questions for this poll. The next question is, how did your child score for mathematics last year? Okay, we'll wait for a while for more parents to respond. I think for the first question, we do see a mixture. Okay, some P3, some P4, and some P5, but mostly P3. Okay, I think P3 is a crucial year, okay, where the children build on foundational concepts and start tackling more complex problem-solving strategies. So in today's webinar, okay, Miss Jacqueline and Miss Stephanie will share effective ways to support them, especially in whole numbers and fractions word problems. Okay, let's look at the second question. Okay, I also have like mixed responses. Okay, some at 70 to 84, okay, and some at 50 to 69. Okay, I'll wait for a while for more responses. I think mostly we have like 80% of the parents indicate that their child scored 50 to 69 last year. Okay, thank you for your participation. I will end the poll now. Okay, I think whether your child is in band 2 or band 3, okay, the goal is continuous improvement. Okay, math is a subject that strengthens with practice. Small and consistent efforts can lead to big leaps in understanding and performance. Later, we'll be sharing some tips and strategies that can support your child's progress. Okay, thank you for your participation, parents. Over to you, Ms. Stephanie.
Okay. Okay, so hi, I'm Miss Stephanie. So for today, we'll first be going through some math syllabus updates. Okay, followed by we will talk about some of the math challenges that we see in our students, as well as the math challenges which parents have talked to us about. Okay, after that, we will look at some problem-solving techniques. And last but not least, we'll look at how math is taught at the Eton Academy. Okay, so as you know, updates to the MOE math syllabus started from the batch of P1 students in 2021. So the current P1 to P5 students have been studying under the new syllabus, while the current P6 students are studying under the old syllabus. Okay, so let's look at the updates in the syllabus and the implications this will have on P3 and P4 math. So the first, in the first row, we have time. So time, which was previously spread across P1 to P4, has been readjusted. So now it is condensed into P1 to P3. Okay, so the next one is nets. The topic of nets was actually in P6. It has now been brought down to P4. Okay, followed by pie charts. Pie chart similarly was in P6, and now it has actually been brought down to P4, and it will spread across P4, P5, and P6. So in P4, pie charts would involve fractions, whole numbers, and basic angles. Okay, so it is related to whatever they have learned in that year. In P5, pie charts would involve percentage, and then in P6, pie charts would involve ratio. Okay, followed by now ratio and average. So ratio and average, which were previously in P5, has now been shifted up to P6. Speed, which was previously in P6, has been completely removed from syllabus. Okay. Similarly, 8-point compass and turns, which was previously in P4, has been removed from syllabus as well. Okay, so now let's look at the implications of what this can have on P3 onwards. Okay, so the first thing of time. So now since time is condensed from P1 to P3, this means that students have to be exposed to and be comfortable with reading of the analog clock as well as the 24-hour clock by P3. Okay, so this means for parents or on the home end, it would be helpful if they could have an analog clock at home or expose the children to analog clocks on a daily basis. Okay, because in their daily lives nowadays, they are very used to digital clocks. So having an analog clock at home will be useful because children nowadays, they do not really have that visual representation of time. Okay, so for example, when we say like 1/4, like half of it, for us, because when we learn this topic, we have this visual representation of the clock in our minds. But for them, a lot of the times, because since they were young, they've only been looking at mostly digital clocks. So it is harder for them to understand that concept of like 5, 10, and 15. So it would be a lot more useful, okay, if they were exposed to that. Okay. Next, shifting of topics from P5 to P6 allows for a less intense P5 curriculum, and it now allows for more time for P5 for students to understand topics such as fractions and geometry, which are really very huge topics. Okay, the removal of P6 speed and then moving of pie charts and nets down to P4, but because there's also a move of ratio and average from P5 to P6, so we expect the load at P6 to be similar or maybe even slightly heavier this time round, okay? Because of these new topics. They need to learn all these new topics together with the existing new topics of circles and algebra. Okay, however, I think it's something that we need to try out first. Because it depends on basically two things. Okay, firstly, it depends on the type of questions that will now be tested. We don't know whether it will be the easier type of questions, the more basic kind of questions, or will it be of the same intensity as previously tested? So for example, in P5, we have the ratio change questions. So we're not sure whether it will continue to be tested or not. Okay, so secondly, at P6, students are older and more cognitively developed. So with the times that they now have in P5 and that they now delve more into topics such as fractions in P5, they may find it more familiar, and then they may find it easier to extrapolate these skills that they learned in P5 to solve sums in ratio and fractions at P6. Okay. Okay, so now we'll have a poll. Okay, so what is your biggest challenge when helping your child with math? So I think Wei Fen will launch the poll.
Yep. Okay, what is your biggest challenge when helping your child with math? Is it understanding new methods, keeping my child engaged, building their confidence, or managing time for practice? And we also have like very mixed results. Okay, but I think most of the parents, you chose option B, keeping my child engaged. Okay, Miss Stephanie, what are your thoughts on this?
Okay, so engagement, it is an important aspect to effective learning. So we understand that keeping a child interested in math is tricky. So don't worry, that's where we come in today, okay, to try to make your life easier. So in our session today, we will be sharing with you how our lessons are designed to be interactive and engaging. And we'll also be sharing some problem-solving techniques as well. Okay, so we will show how we use hands-on activities, structured problem-solving strategies to spark curiosity. Okay, so I think we have another poll coming up. Okay, let me just show it. Okay, so which area does your child struggle with the most?
Okay, which area does your child struggle with the most? Is it basic calculation, work problems, time management in exam, or understanding concepts? Okay, and we'll wait for a while for the parents to respond. Wow, I think it seems that many children find understanding concepts and solving word problem challenging, especially word problem. Word problem is about 60%.
Yeah, so this is a common hurdle, okay, as word problems, they require both comprehension and the ability to apply mathematical concepts effectively. So you're in the right place. So in today's session, we will walk through some strategies that we use to break down complex problems. Okay, and we'll show you how we use visual models, how we use bar model, sorry, okay, and guide your child in identifying key information. Okay, so hopefully that will help you. So our lessons are designed to help learners build a strong conceptual foundation, so making problem solving more intuitive. So I hope that via today's session, parents, you'll take away something and you'll be able to help your child at home. Okay. So let me go on to the next one. Okay. So these are some of the common parents' concerns that we see here. Okay, so like how can I explain math concepts in a way my child understands? Why does my child struggle with math problems? Why does my child always make careless mistakes? Do I always need to use models for all word problems? How much practice do my child be doing? Okay, so these are all common concerns that I've seen in my students, and we also receive such questions from parents as well. Okay, so now let's look at some of these challenges and some possible strategies. Okay, so I've split this into two sections. Okay, so the first part we'll talk about careless mistakes because it seems to be quite a big thing. Like we get a lot of queries about this from parents. So we thought that it would be something worthy to just talk about. Okay, so as we mentioned, so careless mistakes are common concern. So students may make calculation errors with or without calculators. So even with calculators, they can still make careless calculation errors. Okay, so transfer errors are errors where they for example, they transfer numbers wrongly from questions to your working, from your working to your equations, from equations to answer blanks. Okay, so those are transfer errors. And the last one is missing units. So this is when they did not write the correct units, or they did not write units at all in the final answer blank or in their equations. Okay. Then after that, we will go through the second section, which is the students who are intimidated by word problems. So the moment they are faced with words, they're at a loss of what to do, or they just give up. Okay, and then the last point, some students may selectively use information. So they may not use all the information given, or they may assume certain pieces of information or certain things which the question did not give them. So for example, in primary 3, maybe they assume that both persons have the same amount of money, or in P5, maybe they assume that two triangles may be identical when they are not. Okay, so we'll start off with the careless mistake ones. Okay, so let's look a bit let's delve into this a little bit more. Okay, so careless mistakes may arise because of existing habits. Okay, maybe because of personality traits, maybe because of preferences. So you have to remember that even as adults, we make careless mistakes in our work, right? Like we key in the wrong number into Excel sheet, we send the wrong number, for instance. Okay, so usually as adults, we correct these mistakes by generally 2 steps. So firstly, we have to be aware of the kind of mistakes that we make, which means that we would have to have made the mistakes first and experience the consequences of it. Then after which we build a habit to check the things in which we usually make a careless mistake in, right? That's usually what we do as adults. Okay, so it's the same thing for children. So as they are doing their work, they'll start realizing what kind of mistakes they make, and then we have to help them cultivate new habits. Okay, so sometimes they may not be entirely aware of what kind of mistakes they are making, and we have to explicitly point it out to them. So it helps to talk to them about it and then talk about the consequence of always making that mistake. When they make it frequently enough and they start to see their marks being affected, they do really try to they do really register that this is something that they need to make an effort in. Okay, so one way that we do this is to have a checklist for them at the end of either every question or maybe at the end of a worksheet, okay, which reminds them what to check for. Okay, so for example, here I've just listed down generally the calculation errors, transfer errors, whether they have written the correct units and whether they've answered the question. Okay, so for this is checking actually a very specific skill. So it may have to be taught specifically for some students, and then they have to practice doing it as often as they can, okay, so that it becomes almost like a muscle memory, and it becomes something that is easy for them to do. Okay, and it becomes almost like second nature for them. So it takes a lot of time. So some examples for checking calculation errors, right? So it's very personalized. Okay, so for instance, I have a student who even though she's in P6, even though she's using a calculator, she always gets it wrong, the answer wrong, because she always keys the wrong number into the calculator. So for her, I told her very specifically, you are the only student that I have to ask to please, when you're checking your calculation errors, double key in your numbers into the calculator again. So it can be very personalized according to a student or according to your child. So when you check your child's work over time, you will know what kind of errors they make. Okay. Also, they answered the question parts. For example, it's for them to check whether they does their answer make sense, and whether they have given the question what they want. Okay, so other strategies include redoing the questions a second time if the child has time. And sometimes I'll ask them, will you do it the same way a second time? So when they are mentally going through the question again, would they do it the same way a second time? The last method is to work backwards. So you substitute your answer into the question to get a number in the question. However, this is not easy and may not be able to be used for every question. Okay. Okay, then now let's go on to the second section. So let's look at some of these challenges intimidated by word problems and selective use of information. So we'll look at some problem-solving techniques that we have that may help your children who are facing these challenges. Okay. So before that, I think we have a poll as well. So how comfortable are you with solving primary level word problems? So different.
Okay, I've just launched the poll. Are you very confident, somewhat confident, not very confident, or you avoid them at all costs? I see like 11% of the parents say they are very confident about, also 11%, okay, say not very confident. Okay, I think we have the highest for somewhat confident, 73%. Wow. I mean, Stephanie, what do you think of this result?
Okay, so it's really a mix of somewhat confident and very confident. So it's quite a mix of results. So it's great to see that many of you are somewhat confident. Okay, but we also understand that word problems can be tricky and it's very different nowadays. Okay, so they require strong mathematical understanding and problem solving strategies. So for those who are not confident, don't worry. So in today's session, we'll break down some effective ways to approach word problems. Okay, so methods which you can use with your child, from identifying key information to using visual models like bar graphs, like bar models. Okay, so our goal is to give you the tools to support your child with greater confidence. Okay, so also just a reminder that we will be giving out a free math resource at the end of the webinar. So if you would like the resource, please do stay until the end of the webinar. Okay, so now let's move on to look at some problem solving techniques. Okay. So usually we use these 3 steps to help our students. Okay? Analyze, translate, and solve. So in the next few slides, we'll look at how we can use them in some P3 and P4 questions of varying concepts. So the first one is a P3 whole number word problem. Okay, so together with your child, you read through the whole question once, right? Okay, so James, Kelly, and Lily have 1,320 stickers altogether. Kelly has twice as many stickers as James. Lily has 20 more stickers than James. How many stickers does James have? Okay, so we just read it through generally. Then let's analyze the question. So we identify key numbers and what they represent. Okay, so from the first sentence, James, Kelly, and Lily, so we know that there are 3 people. And 1,320 represent their total number of stickers. So you talk it through with your child. Okay. Then from the second sentence, the child may identify that we are comparing Kelly and James. So you may want to ask them, who are we comparing now? Okay, so they may tell you, okay, we are comparing Kelly and James. So twice as many. What does twice as many mean? So you may ask them that. So they may tell you whatever James has, Kelly has 3 times of it. So if you like to, you can use a smaller number. If James has 2 stickers, how many stickers does Kelly have? So make sure that they understand what that sentence means. Okay. So you can even ask does Kelly have more or does James have? So usually most students can tell me, oh, Kelly has. Okay, so if they do not understand that, then you know, okay, I need to explain this. We need to look at this a little bit. Okay, so then we go on to the third sentence. Okay, so Lily has 20 more stickers than James. Similarly, you ask who has more stickers. Okay, so Lily has more stickers. So, and then we ask, if we draw a model, whose model will be longer? Okay, Lily's will be longer because hers is more. Sometimes I will ask inversely, so whose model will be shorter? Who has fewer stickers? Okay, so it makes them think about what that sentence means. That's really very important. Okay. So these are all possible questions you ask your child. Then after they are familiar with this process, right, they'll get into the habit of thinking about what each sentence means on their own. Okay, after that, if they can, if they have already learned the term for this kind of word problems, they should try to identify the concept. So here, because we are comparing 3 different people, so it's a repeated identity concept.
Miss Stephanie, I have a question. Is it okay if students do not know the name of the concept?
Yeah, it's okay if the students don't know the name of the concept. They should still be able to solve it if they use analyze, transfer, and then solve. Okay, so but understanding the term does help in some way because it helps them to draw upon previously known experiences of solving such questions. So if they already learned how to solve such questions, repeated identity questions already, and then after that, they can tell you, oh, this is repeated identity. it boosts their self-esteem. And they know that, oh, I have solved this before. I remember something from class, something about this, a little bit about what I've learned. Okay, it may not be entirely, they may not remember everything, but it does help because it draws upon a previously known experience already. Okay, so if they do not know, then it's the first time they're learning about it, then of course introduce the term to them. Okay, it's because they need to start at some point. Okay, so but it's not entirely necessary as long as they can analyze, translate, and solve. Okay, so after analyzing, we move on to translate. Okay, so translate means we are going to use the information, and then we will draw a model. Okay, so since we have already discussed with your child what each sentence means, usually it becomes very easy for them to draw. Okay, so I know that James is the repeated item because the second sentence, I'm comparing Kelly and James. In the third sentence, I'm comparing Lily and James. So James is a very popular person. Okay, so I'll put James in the middle. Then they can choose whether they want to put Kelly on top or they want to put Kelly at the bottom. Okay, so let's say I placed it in this way. So from the second sentence, I know Kelly has twice as many. So from your discussion, they already know that Kelly, I draw 3 boxes, and James, I draw 1 box. Then after that, we go on to the third sentence. I know Lily has 20 more stickers, so I know Lily's model has to be longer than James. So I'm going to put all the information down, and 20 is here. Okay, and from the very first sentence, 1,320, I know that I can write it at the side here. So they do not know this. Some of them, you may need to explicitly tell them that the total, I have to put it on the right-hand side. Okay, so I have students who ask me, can I put it on the left? Can I just circle and write 1320? Can I just put 1320 on the top? So there are a lot of variations, but if it's possible, it is easier if they standardize the method of presentation. Okay, just put it on one side, on the right-hand side usually. Okay. After which, we go on to solve. So the moment they have the model out, it is a lot easier because it's very visual now. Okay, so firstly, we ask prompt them to look at what is the question asking for. So in this question, the question is asking for James, right? So you may put a question mark there. Okay. Then after that, you ask them, how do we find James? So we try to relate units to its value. So from here, there are many things to explain here. Okay. So but generally, you should go along the pathway of getting your children to write down 5 units equals to 1,320. Okay, so to find 5 units equals to 1,320, take away the 20. So when I take away the 20, I will have 5 equal boxes. So that's my goal. I want to have 5 equal boxes. And why do I want to have 5 equal boxes? Because only when I have all the boxes are equal, then I can divide. So if I do not have equal boxes, I cannot divide. So usually this is something that the students have trouble with. So they may ask me, can I divide by 6 boxes? Okay, so sometimes they will ask that. Sometimes I'll ask them explicitly straight up, can I divide by 6 boxes? And then depending on what they tell me, then I will go on to explain. Okay, but generally relate the units to its value. Then we find 1 unit. So 1,300 divided by 5 equals to 260. Okay, after that, prompt them to recheck. Okay, what is the question asking for? The question is asking for James. So have you found what James, what the number of stickers that James had? So they'll probably say, yes, we have found it already. Okay, so the answer is 260. Okay, so they have to go through this entire process. Okay, so now I will hand over to Miss Jacqueline because she will go through a P4 word problem.
Okay, thank you, Miss Stephanie. Okay, I will go through a whole number word problem from P4. Don't worry if your child is in P3 because the concepts that they learn in P3 will progressively be learned or be tested also in P4 and in P5 and P6, but of course it will be at a higher order thinking level. So let's move on to the next slide. Okay, so this is the question. A t-shirt, a bag, and the cap costs $256. The bag costs $24 more than the cap. The t-shirt costs the same as the total value of the bag and the cap. How much does the cap cost? Okay, so this is a typical word problem that appears in section C in the P4 exam that may be worth about 4 marks. Okay, and then what we're going to do now is to go through the same steps as what Miss Stephanie did in the P3 problem. So first being to analyze the question. Okay, let's identify the key numbers and what they represent. So we see that there are 3 items: t-shirt, bag, cap that cost $256. We see that the bag costs $24 more than a cap. And we see that the t-shirt costs the same as the total value of the bag and the cap. And we're going to find how much the cap costs. Okay, so after we have identified the key numbers and what they represent, what we want to do next is to think about what these numbers and keywords mean, how they come together, and what concept we can identify from all this information. Okay, so what we see here is the repeated identity, because like what Stephanie said just now, who is the most popular item? What's the most popular item that appeared here? Okay, we can see that it's actually the bag and the cap.
Jacqueline, just wondering, is there any difference? How is P4 repeated identity different from P3 repeated identity? Is it the same? Is it exactly the same?
I would say that the concept itself is exactly the same, because we see that there is item A versus item B, and then item B versus item C. So we see something being repeated here. But a higher order thinking that we see in a P4 word problem would be that in the third statement, you see here that they compare the t-shirt versus the total value of the bag and the cap. So they are comparing one item with the sum of the value of 2 items. So this is something that students might need to think a little bit further in order to really understand what this statement means in order to solve the question. Okay, so let's see. After we analyze the question and identify its concept, we can go into the next step, which is to translate all this information into a model. Okay, sometimes for certain children or students, if sometimes it's too wordy for them. So what I encourage some students to do is to actually visualize the problem. So in their head, they have images, or if they want, they can just sketch very quickly on the side to visualize what is happening in the question. Okay. Okay, so from that second statement, the bag costs $24 more than the cap. We can draw a model, a comparison model with the bag longer and the cap with a shorter model. And then in the third statement, where we compare the t-shirt costing the same as the total value of the bag and the cap, what I have drawn here is to stack the model for the bag and the cap together. Okay, so instead of drawing one long line of model, I stack it so that visually it's easier to see the same units for throughout the bag, the cap, and the t-shirt. Okay, I will show you what I mean. Okay. Okay, so after we have identified the units for the bag, cap, and the t-shirt, we put in the information. So the numbers will have to go in as well, the $24 more than, the $256 in total. Okay, and then once we have all this information down, we can identify where the basic units are. We also want to know what the question is asking for by putting in the question mark for the cap. Okay, and then we can start to solve. Okay, so remember, we always want to relate the units to the value. A value given here is 256. So how we can use the 256 and the 24 is to first identify the excess in the model, which is the two portions of 24 here. So we'll take 24 times 2 to get the 48. We'll remove the excess by taking the total 256 minus the 48. And then we relate the remaining units, which is the 4 units, to the value of 208. And then we want to find 1 unit. So we always want to find 1 unit we always want to find 1 unit so that we can solve the question. Sometimes the final answer might not be that 1 unit, sometimes it may be more than that. So we always have to go back and check the question again, because a lot of students tend to assume that 1 unit is the answer, and they tend to write that 1 unit as the answer. So always go back and recheck what is the question asking for. In this case, the cap is 1 unit, therefore the answer is $52. Okay, so I think now we'll move on to a fraction word problem. And I'll hand the time back to Miss Stephanie.
Okay, so now let's look at the P3 fraction question. So similarly, we read through the question once. So Uncle Daniel bought an apple pie and cut it into 12 pieces. He gave 1/4 of the pie to his niece and 4 pieces to his neighbor. What fraction of the pie was left? Express your answer in its simplest form. Okay, so same thing, we analyze the question first. So from the first sentence, we know that the total is 12 pieces. Okay, so we identify the key numbers and what they represent. From the second sentence, what does 1/4 mean? So there's a possible question you have to ask your child. Okay, what does the denominator mean? So they should be able to tell you the denominator means the total, which is in this case the entire pie. What does the numerator mean? So the numerator refers to the amount of pie that he gave to his niece. Okay, and also here we also have the 4 pieces that we gave to his neighbor. Okay, so in this particular question, there's no special meaning. It's just a P3 fraction as part of the whole question. So after you have analyzed this already, we go on to translate. Okay, so since we know that the denominator represents the total, and we know that the 12 pieces also represents total, we have to change the denominator of 4 to 12. So we multiply by 3 in the numerator and the denominator to change it to 3 out of 12. Okay, then we draw a model with the information label. So we draw 12 units, then we put in all the information. So sometimes you can tell your child that put in all the information. Okay, so from the numerator, the 3 units is the amount that's given to the niece. 4 pieces is given to the neighbor. Okay, after you have done that, let's move on to solve. So what is the question asking for? The question is asking for what is left. So in this particular question, it's left, so we indicate there that this is what we want to find, the left. Okay, so can we write a fraction for the leftover portion of the pie? Yes, we can. So the child most likely with the model will be able to tell you that it's 5 out of a total of 12. Okay, and then after that, from them, we check what is the question asking for. So the question is asking for the amount that is left. So I've given that. What else? Is there anything else? Yes, the question says express your answer in the simplest form. So you check your answer as have you expressed it in the simplest form. So for this particular question, this particular fraction, you cannot divide it anymore. So this is the simplest form.
Stephanie, is it okay if the students solve the question without using model? What if they only use like numbers or fractions to solve the question?
So this is a common question. Also, because as adults, we are very familiar with, we are very comfortable with just using numbers, right? So this is an alternate method here, okay? So yes, there's more than one way of solving this question. So this method here solves it using only fractions with no model. Okay, so at P3, it is preferable to use model because it is visual and because they're learning it for the first time, so it is useful. So we try to use, we use the concrete pictorial abstract approach. Okay, so a model is a pictorial approach. So at P3, unless they are really very strong, usually I would encourage them to draw out the model. Okay, the thing that we will not use is we will not use fraction of a set to explain this question. That means we will not do 4 units is equals to 12 pieces. And then we will do 1 unit equals to 12 divided by 4. So I will not use that, although it is, we are very familiar with it as adults because they have not learned this topic at all. So they only touch on this in P4. Okay. So I think now I will pass on to Miss Jacqueline to cover the question.
Thank you, Miss Stephanie. So here we see a primary 4 fractions word problem. You will start to see more fractions appearing within one question, Also, you will see a mix of values together with the fractions. So this is where a lot of my students will say in P3, wow, fractions is so easy. And then when they come to P4 and they see a mix of whole numbers, and they see sometimes even with unit measurements like kilograms, grams, liters, milliliters in the same question with fractions, and they start to get confused. So this is the point in P4 where they really, really have to understand what this concept where fractions appear together with values. Okay, I will review the concept in a bit. Okay, but for now, just know that it is important to analyze a statement with fractions in them. Okay, so the first thing we want to note that is in this question, we don't see any measurement units. There's no kilograms, grams, liters, milliliters, centimeters, meters, none of that. Okay, so the concept here would be this is a fraction as a part of a set. Okay. Okay. At this point also, I want to just check in with the participants, whether you remember the 3 steps that Miss Stephanie and I have gone through. Okay, what are the 3 simple steps when going through a word problem? Okay, it starts with A, T, and S. Can you type that in the chat below? Okay, what are the 3 steps to go through when we are doing any word problem? Okay, A, T, S. Okay, just type that in the chat below, and then I'll see your responses. Okay, so A, yes, I see A stands for analyze. Okay, and then T is to translate, and then S will be to solve. Okay, so ATS, analyze, translate, and solve. Okay, I'm going to test you again later, so try to remember the steps, okay? Okay, so let's go back. Okay, so how should we analyze a fraction word problem? First, we'll start with separating the denominators and the numerators in a fraction, okay? Okay, so Jamie read 2/9 of a book on Friday. So what we can do here is to identify the denominator 9 as the number of units that represents the entire book, and 2 units is the number of pages that were read on Friday. Then for 2/3 of the book on Saturday, 3 units represents the number of pages in the book, while 2 units represents the number of pages read on Saturday. Okay, in the next sentence, she read the remaining pages of the book on Sunday. Okay, there's no number here, so we'll think about that later. And then the third statement, she read 75 more pages on Saturday than on Friday. Okay. Okay, so this is a fraction as part of a set concept, again, because we don't see any measurement units and we see values together with the fractions. Okay, so after analyze, we're going to translate all that information by visualizing or by a model drawing. Okay, so in our model, we will start with 9 units. Okay, and then in that 9 units, we want to identify where the numerators are. So 2 units for the number of pages on Friday. But you see, for Saturday, it's 2/3 of the book. Now, the 3 units at the bottom supposed to represent the total number of pages in the book. Just now it was 9 units, now it's 3 units. So what we need to do is to find the common multiple, make 3 into 9, and then the numerator 2 will become 6. So that's 6 units out of 9 units for Saturday. And we can naturally see in the model that there's a remainder of 1 more unit, and that would be the number of pages that's read on Sunday. We can also do this in using the unitary approach. So without the model, this is for students who are able to visualize already, and they can go straight to just using the units. So it's also fine to not have a model. Okay, so then now we need to relate the the value to the number of units, right? So that's 75 more pages. Where are we going to get the number of units to represent the 75 pages? We need to look for Saturday and Friday's units. So that is 2 units and 6 units. Okay, so we can start to solve by taking 6 units. Oh no, sorry. I skipped ahead. So actually part A, we need to answer part A first, right? That was that 1 unit out of the 9. So for the fraction of the book that was read on Sunday is 1 out of 9. Okay, then we can go on to part B. Okay, so for part B, to find the number of pages, we need to use the value now, which is that 75 pages, by comparing the number of units for Saturday and Sunday. So Saturday and Sunday, that's 6 units versus 1 unit. 6, take away 1, that would be 5 units. So the 5 units represents the 75 pages. Again, after we have related the value to the number of units, we will always want to find 1 unit. So we find 1 unit by taking 75 divided by 5. That gives us 15. And then we can find the total number of pages, which is the 9 units. So 15 times 9, and our answer is 135. Go back and check the question again. They're asking for total number of pages in the book. So yes, the 9 units equals 135 is our answer. Okay, so now we will pass the time back to Miss Stephanie, who will go through another whole number word problem from P3.
Okay, so this is the last set of word problems. Okay, so this concept is internal transfer. So this is a common P3 question. So there are many variations of internal transfer questions. So this is the one of the most common ones. So similarly, read through the entire question first. May has 58 stickers. Lin has 5 times as many stickers as her. How many stickers will Lin have to give to May so that both of them have the same number of stickers? So we analyze key numbers and what they represent. Okay, so May, 58 stickers. Lin is 5 times as many stickers as her. Same thing. Okay, who does the her refer to? It refers to May. Who has more stickers? Lin has more stickers. So these are questions that you can ask your child. Okay, what does it mean and how do I draw the model? So Lin has 5 units, May has 1 unit. Okay, and then Lin have to give to me. So how do I show it in the model? I have to cut some from Lin and then transfer it to May. Okay, both of them have the same number of stickers in the end. So what does this mean in terms of model? It means that the length of the models at the end will have to be the same. After they have talked through all this, they should be able to see that there is this question has a before, change, and after concept. And since Lin is giving May, this is an internal transfer concept question that looks like a smiley face here. Okay? All right, so after they have analyzed the question, we translate it into a model. So after this, very easy. So May 58, so I'll draw 1 box for May. Lin has 5 times, so I'll draw 5 boxes for Lin. Okay, then Lin have to give to May so that both of them have the same number of stickers. So we can ask the child, how many boxes does Lin have to give to May so that they will have the same number or the equal length of model. So you can try 1 box by 1 box with your child. So if I move 1 box, are they equal? No, they are not. Maybe let's move 2 boxes then. Okay, if I move 2 boxes, okay, now they are equal. So from here, it very naturally goes into solve. Okay, so what is the question asking for? They're asking for what Lin has to, how many stickers Lin will have to give to May. Okay, and so 1 unit, since they know that 1 unit is 58, it's very easy for them to say, oh, 2 units or 2 boxes is 58 times 2, which is equals to 160. Okay, now back to Miss Jacqueline.
Okay, thank you, Miss Stephanie. Okay, so we'll look at the same concept, but at the P4 level. So here we have Aaron had some crayons, and Boris had 470 crayons more than Aaron. Boris gave 735 crayons to Aaron, and in the end, Aaron would have 5 times as many crayons as Boris. So how many crayons did Boris have at first? Okay, so we know this is an internal transfer question because of the change in the middle where Boris gave 735 crayons to Aaron. So your child should be able to visualize this change and identify the concept correctly. Okay.
Parents, if you have any questions, feel free to type in the chat.
Okay, so first we start by analyzing the question, identify the key numbers and what they represent, and then identify the concept. Okay, after we analyze, we are able to translate all that information into a model. We see in the first statement, right, that Boris had 470 crayons more than Aaron. So that's where we're going to start. We will start by drawing a comparison model. Okay. Okay, so Boris's model will be longer than Aaron's by that 470. Now, if Boris is going to give 735 crayons to Aaron, and we see that 735 is more than the 470, so we need to cut off a larger chunk from Boris's model to go over to Aaron's side. Okay. Okay, so I cut that off. Notice that I use a lot of dotted lines to show the change so that we are not confused with what was happening before and what happened after. Okay, so after I made the transfer, in the end, Aaron had 5 times as many crayons as Boris. If Aaron had 5 times, that means that Boris would have 1 time. It's always easier to identify where the 1 time is in the model first. So I identified the 1 unit where Boris is and bring up that 1 unit so that I know the remaining 4 units would be made up of those values that you see at the back of Aaron's model. Okay, so if your child is able to see this, then you will be able to start solving by relating the value to the number of units, okay? Okay, so also check what the question is asking for. The question is asking for how many crayons did Boris have at first. Your child should be able to identify correctly which part of the model was Boris's crayons at first and not what he had after, okay? Okay, so we're going to start solving by relating the value to the number of units. First, we need to find that little portion there by taking 735, take away 470, and it gives you that 265. Okay, and then to relate the 4 units to the value of 265 plus the 735, and that is 1000. Then remember, after we have related the value to the number of units, we always want to find 1 unit. So find 1 unit and the answer is 250. Now we can go and we can go back to the question. How many crayons did Boris have at first? Boris had 1 unit and that 735 there, right? So that would be our next step. Okay, and then the answer is 985. Okay, so quick recap. What are the 3 steps to solving any word problem? Okay, what are the 3 steps for the problem solving techniques? So A, what does it stand for? Okay, you can just type it quickly in the chat. Okay. Okay, I see.
I see when parents ask a question, are there also strategies as well for solving heuristic math? Miss Jacqueline or Miss Stephanie, would you like to answer this question?
Actually, all these questions that we have, okay, this one in particular that we just went through, the before, change, after, it's heuristics. So these 3 steps that we are using now, this analyze, translate, and solve, would apply to solving heuristics word problems.
Unless you're talking about things like guess and check. I feel like maybe they're asking about that. So we do have as well. Yeah. So it depends on what kind of sums you're talking about.
Okay, I hope that answers your question. I mean, if you have more questions, you can just feel free to type in the chat. Okay, and then we'll answer along the way. Yeah, I think we will move on. Yes, so the 3 steps would be to analyze, translate, and solve. Okay, one last poll. We just want to know how frequently does your child engage in math practice each week?
How frequently does your child engage in math practice every week? Is it does not do any extra practice, once or twice a week, 3 to 6 times a week, or daily? Okay, I think most parents chose once or twice a week. Yeah. So Miss Jacqueline, what are your thoughts on this?
Oh, it's great that you're already starting with once or twice a week. I think that is a good start. Okay, but of course, with more in math, with more practice, it will be more beneficial because with more practice, they'll be able to master the concepts because of the many different concepts that your child will be exposed to throughout their primary school journey. Okay, so I think we'll move on to showcase our journals at the Eton Academy. I will hand over the time to Miss Stephanie.
So at the Eton Academy, we use a structured and progressive approach to teaching math. Okay, so we try to ensure that students build a strong conceptual foundation while developing problem-solving skills. So our journals, our worksheets are actually designed to support different stages of learning. So we start with lesson reviews and topical practices. So on the left, okay, there's an example of a lesson review that we have. Okay, so all our worksheets here follow a spiral approach. So we allow students to revisit key concepts which they have previously learned and strengthen their understanding. So through investigative exercises, they explore different problem-solving strategies and develop critical thinking skills. So next, our assessment-based worksheets help gauge students' mastery of topics, reinforce their learning through targeted practice in topical practice 2 and topical practice 2.1. So we also provide extended learning tasks which challenge students to apply their knowledge in more complex situations. So these refer to the higher level questions. So these are questions in our topical practice 2.1, 2.2. Sometimes we have worksheets called stretch as well. Okay, so finally, our home learning worksheets on the far right ensure continuous practice beyond the classroom. So reinforcing concepts and promoting independent learning. So with this structured approach, students gain confidence and proficiency. So let's look at some samples. Let's look at inside some of the worksheets that we have. Okay, so this is a P3 journal. So our journals have elements of analyze, translate, and solve. So the image on the left shows how we build analysis into our journal. So we get them to highlight and underline information. The one on the right shows the translate portion. Okay. And we have guided steps as well, step 1, step 2, step 3. Okay. Over here, we have, this is a particular page in our journal, which shows discussions. We do have discussions to aid conceptual understanding. So we do have, at P3, we discuss what each operation means so that students can decide which appropriate operation to use based on what they want to find or to do instead of just purely memorizing. So we also have activities such as the one on the right, such as matching. So it breaks the monotony of doing just sounds. But at the same time, it also allows the students to think about the concepts or ideas that are being taught.
Okay, so our approach to teaching math follows the concrete, pictorial, and abstract framework. We begin with hands-on activities using physical objects to help students grasp mathematical concepts. And then we transition to pictorial representations that allow them to visualize problems before moving on to abstract symbols like models and equations. Additionally, we encourage our students to verbalize their thought processes. We ask a lot of questions. By explaining their reasoning, they will develop deeper understanding and confidence in problem solving. And this structured approach ensures that students build a strong mathematical foundation while also honing their critical thinking skills. Our journals for Primary 4 are designed with scaffolded learning in mind. Each activity builds on the previous one, helping students to progress step by step with confidence. And through guided questions and structured tasks, our students not only are supported in their learning, but they are also encouraged to think critically and develop strong and analytical skills. So this approach ensures that they can tackle more complex problems independently over time. Also, you will see that there are mark allocation in our questions as it serves as a guide for students to gauge the amount of time that they should be spending on each question, as well as a rough number of steps they should be using to solve the questions. Most importantly, our materials emphasize concept mastery that helps students to develop a deep and lasting understanding of the mathematical principles. And we also have ample practice that ensures that they gain confidence and fluency in solving different types of problems. Okay, I think we have come to the end of our sharing. Okay, so thank you for staying with us throughout the entire webinar. This is a free resource that Miss Stephanie and I have specially designed for all the participants of the webinar today. So you can scan this QR code. Miss Wei Fan will also share the link to the file in the chat now. I hope you found the session valuable, and the strategies that we discussed will be helpful for you to support your child's math learning journey. Okay, so if you're not able to access the file, please do let us know in the chat. We will also send a link post-webinar. Okay.
Thank you, Ms. Jacqueline and Ms. Stephanie, for the very informative sharing. I think the step-by-step approach and practical problem-solving techniques shared by them will be extremely helpful in building confidence when tackling word problems. The strategy for solving some of the whole number and fraction word problems are especially insightful, providing clear methods to support our child's learning. Let me share with you our math class schedule in case you would like to visit and see if your child would want to try out our trial classes. We offer math classes at 4 locations: Canberra Plaza, Great World, Sengkang Grand Mall, and Woodley Mall. You can take a look at the available class timing for primary 3 to primary 6. Okay, feel free to take a snapshot if you need to. Okay, if your child is younger, we also offer math lessons from N2 to P2. Okay, if you're interested, you can visit our website or give us a call for more details. Okay, we'll leave this up for a moment so that you can have a quick look. Okay, all these details can also be found in our website. Okay, we would also love to invite you and your child to our Experience Day at Canberra Plaza on Sunday, 13 April, from 11 to 3 p.m. Okay, on this special day, right, you will have the opportunity to explore what the Eton Academy has to offer. Okay, if your child is in P1, 2, or 3, he or she can receive a complimentary diagnostic test. Additionally, if you decided to sign up with us, you will enjoy an exclusive promotion of up to 3 lesson fee waiver. Okay, our specialists will also be present on that day to answer any questions you may have regarding our curriculum or programs. We are also very excited to introduce our after-school care and enrichment program, Elevate. Okay, located right here at Canberra Plaza, Elevate is designed to provide a nurturing and engaging environment for your child beyond school hours. Okay, on that day, we invite you to enjoy a food tasting session prepared by our in-house chef. Okay, I think this is a fantastic opportunity for you and your child to experience firsthand the enriching learning experience we provide. You can scan the QR code to secure your spot. Okay, please join us at Canberra Plaza, and we hope to see you there on that day. Okay, I'll leave this slide on for just a bit before I move on to the next slide. Okay, if you have any question, feel free to type them in the webinar chat, and we'll do our best to answer them right away. Okay, if you are unable to address your question immediately, okay, do not worry. We'll be sure to get back to you if you leave your contact details. Okay, please go ahead and drop your question in the chat now, and we'll be happy to answer them for you. Yeah, I think I see a question. Okay, is the trial class the same as a regular class, or is it tailored differently? Ms. Jacqueline, can you help to answer this question?
Okay. Yes, the trial class covers the same content as a regular class, but certain adjustments might be made based on the trial student's needs. to ensure that they are engaged and also comfortable with the learning pace. So this allows for a more personalized experience while maintaining the core curriculum.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Jacqueline. I think I see another question. Okay, how do you accommodate children who join midterm? Would you like to answer this question, Ms. Stephanie?
Okay. So we do often have students who join us midterm, okay, or even at the start of term 4. So our teachers will help to ensure that the children who join midterm receive the necessary support to catch up smoothly. So this includes formative assessments to identify their current understanding. We have targeted revision of key topics, key concepts that were covered earlier, and additional guidance during the lessons, ensuring the students are able to integrate seamlessly into the class.
Thank you, Ms. Stephanie. Okay, let me check to see if there's more questions. Okay, I see another question. What is the maximum class size? Okay, so the maximum class size here, okay, is 12 students. So we believe in keeping our classes small to ensure that every child gets the attention they need. Okay, so with fewer students, the teacher can focus on the learner's strength and area for improvement. Okay, I think this also creates a supportive and interactive learning environment, okay, whereby students feel comfortable asking questions, okay, sharing ideas, and building their confidence. All right. Okay, I think we have answered all the questions. Okay, once again, thank you for joining us for today's webinar. We hope you find this session insightful. We appreciate your time and interest. Okay, we hope to see you at our Experience Day, okay, on 13 April at Canberra Plaza, or at any of our center if you would like to find out more about our program. Okay, if you have any further questions, okay, feel free to give us a call and we'll be happy to help. You have a wonderful evening and we look forward to seeing you soon.